Hi, I'm Reverend Tom Kearns, and welcome to 333 Magic 9, where the tarot cards and stars come together to help you. 2021 is going to be quite a different year than last year, but there still are some critical days you need to know about because they can affect your love, your money, and your career. So let's take a closer look. Virgo, the card for the first quarter of the year, January, February, and March, is the Three of Wands. And as you look at the Three of Wands, he is looking off into the distance. So he's looking into the future. And from where he's standing, he can see a bright, sunny future, which is really good. We need one of those. So he also sees that there's opportunity ahead, but he also realizes there will be challenges ahead. So both good things and difficult things are captured in this card, but it's mostly full of hope with that bright sunshine. Now, as we go into January, the biggest thing we want to talk about is Jupiter and Saturn. You can see they're conjunct here as they're moving into the sixth house and the sign of Aquarius, and that happened at the end of December, the 18th and the 20th actually. And now Jupiter and Saturn are separating. Now that's good because some of the intensity that we've experienced in the past year when Jupiter, Saturn, and Pluto were all conjunct in Capricorn, and Capricorn rules structure and government, and Pluto represents pandemics. So all of that stuff is starting to loosen up, moving apart. So that will allow Jupiter, the green line here, to express more enthusiasm and optimism for the future. And Saturn follows up Jupiter and says, okay, you can be enthusiastic, you can look for optimistic opportunities, but you must remember you have to make them real in some way. And Aquarius is the sign of humanitarianism and socialism. So one of the problems that we might experience with that is Saturn tends to be a little cold in Aquarius. It's an intellectual sign, it's not a feeling sign. So we have to be a little bit concerned about that. So we need to remember people are feeling beings, not just intellectual beings. As we move ahead, the next aspect that we want to talk about is a square between Mars is the red line, and Saturn, the orange line. And this usually represents frustration and delay. And so we're going to have to be a little bit aware of that. We can't be too pushy, especially since Saturn is down in the area of health and work. So you have to keep your eye on your work, take care of your responsibilities and your duties, and then you'll be okay. And also don't let stress get to you because it can affect your health. And that would not be a good thing. Now, Uranus, and he's up here, this sort of bright red or pinkish red sign right here. He's in the ninth house, and that's the house of understanding. He will be turning direct and bring new opportunities in the area of your understanding of the world, but also this is the house of ambition. So anything that you can find that will deal with how you deal with different cultural norms, how you deal with new technology, that can be very helpful because when Uranus goes direct, it sort of brings the energy, the motion forward. The next thing I want to talk about is really actually a pretty big thing. It involves Mars, it involves Uranus, and it involves Jupiter. So Mars will be conjunct Uranus, so Mars will be moving up to this point here, and so they'll be in the same place. Now Uranus and Mars together is really willful, and that can be actually a little bit dangerous if you don't control your energy. So make sure you control your energy. That'll be a little bit hard to do because Jupiter will be squaring both of those energies. So Jupiter is expansion, And Jupiter is a king of the gods. So we have to be a little bit careful, especially when it deals with your work and health, not to gamble too much. Don't let your desires, Mars and Uranus, get out of hand. So you really do have to keep a little bit of control here, or else you can be a little bit too pushy and too independent, and that might not work for you, especially if you're dealing in the area of business and needing to take care of the details in business. So keep your eye on the details. Next, we go to Mercury. And Mercury is this darker blue line here. And he is going retrograde on January 30th. He stays retrograde until February 21st. Now, whenever Mercury is retrograde, you have to be careful in communications and travel and in details. And in this instance, since he's in the sixth house, it again goes to the area of work and health. So do take care of your nerves, because that can be a little bit difficult. And watch the way you're thinking, because in this energy with all the Aquarius, which is an intellectual energy around, and Mercury is an intellectual planet, you need to take control of your mind. Don't let it run away with you. Next, we move to February. And again, this is a very big aspect. We have Saturn squaring Uranus. So Saturn and Uranus are not friendly whatsoever. They really are opposite energies. Saturn wants to stay put and do the status quo, and Uranus wants to overthrow it and move into the future. He's the revolutionary, and surely we're living in the middle of a revolution. So we have to be a little bit careful, because look what happens in revolutions. Sometimes buildings get burnt down and people get hurt and things of that nature, and that should never happen. So we're going to have to be careful, because Saturn wants to stay as is. Saturn is the structure. Uranus is the revolution. So you have to be a little bit careful. The past and the future sort of have to work together. The past should give you the foundation, Saturn, for the future, Uranus. The next aspect we go into is Venus. Now, Venus is this very pretty powdery blue line, and Venus represents love and, caring and being gentle. But Venus is moving into the sign of Aries. and Aries doesn't like Venus that much, because Aries is way too independent and way too fiery, and Venus rules the opposite sign of Libra and the more steady sign of Taurus, and Aries is the warrior. So there can be some problems. So don't be too pushy in romance. Don't be too independent in romance. And the other part of that is, if you want a little excitement or challenge in romance, that might be in the offer. So next we move to the second quarter, and of course that's April, May, and June. And the card for the second quarter is the Seven of Pentacles, or coins. Now, this is a card that represents that you have worked hard, you have gathered resources together, but now you're stopping. You're not moving forward. You're looking to see, what should I do with what I have gained? So, you've been rewarded for your work, but now you're sort of pausing. Where do I go? How do I make this better? What do I want to establish? So this is somewhat established, but we still have further to go. So as we go into April, the first major challenge is a square between Mars. So Mars is the red line up here, and Neptune is here, right, this planet here. Neptune's in the seventh house of relationships. Now, this happens on April 9th. So dealing in either legal affairs, relationships, or coming before the public, don't believe everything you hear. Neptune has this tendency to be a little bit, let's say, inventive. Now, Mars can bring energy to Neptune and help you express creative things, creative ideas. But again, Mars is a warrior, and so he wants to move very quickly. And Neptune is much more on the spiritual and the imaginative level. So you have to be a little bit careful. Don't let your imagination run away with itself. You need to control it. Next, we go to Mercury and Venus. Now, Mercury is the blue, deep blue line, and Venus is the powder blue line, as I said just before. They are going to conjunct Uranus. Now, that is really, can be a very good thing. Mercury rules the logical mind and communications and travel. Venus, of course, is the lesser benefic, so she's a good factor. And Venus, by the way, rules Taurus, the sign that Uranus is in. So this can bring visionary ideas to you. It can bring the chance for a romance with a strange or foreign person. Strange might even be better. Who knows? It's according to how strange you are. So this can bring opportunities in understanding other people, other cultures, other belief systems, and it can also help you express some of your creative ideas, because actually Venus can be very creative. Now we move into May, and this is really big because Jupiter, the green line over here, is moving up into Pisces in the 7th house. And this is the first time in 7 years. And Jupiter is strengthened in Pisces. He likes this sign. He used to rule this sign. That was before we found Neptune. So Jupiter in Pisces increases sensitivity. You can be compassionate. You can have a healing feeling about you. You can really expand your spirituality and your creativity. And in the 7th house, he might bring you in front of the public in some way, or he may bring opportunities for a really spiritual relationship. So keep an eye open for that. That can be really nice. Then we go to Mercury and Saturn, and they go retrograde in the last week of the month. So when Mercury goes retrograde and he's up here in the 10th house, you're going to have to be careful in career and status issues. You know, make sure you're listening, make sure you're saying the right things. Mercury is always difficulties in communications or travel, so watch the details. And Saturn is down here in the work area. So career and work come under some stress and tension. And again, that is the last week of May. So use your logic and thoughtfulness. And in the area of work and career, try to be supportive of other people if you can help them. Now we go to June. And June on the 6th starts off with a little bit of a bang. Woo! As you can see down here, we have Pluto. And Pluto is in the 5th house of romance. And, you know, that is a very quiet energy that you don't really feel too much. But Mars is going to oppose Pluto from the 11th house of friendship. So you're going to have to be a little bit careful, because Mars represents your desires and your actions, and Pluto represents hidden things, you know, maybe intimacy that you don't want anybody to know about. So be careful to keep anything in the area of romance, anything in the area of dealing with groups of people above board. That way you don't get into trouble. It just makes it easy. And then on June 22nd, Mercury goes direct. So he starts moving forward, and that should be very good, clearing up any issues in career, any problems with travel or communication. So that's beneficial in that regard. Then on June 20th, Jupiter, and on June 25th, both Jupiter and Neptune will be going retrograde in the 7th house. Now again, this is in Pisces. So you're going to need to keep yourself clear because Pisces can be a very emotional, a very imaginative energy. And this is the house where you deal with partnerships and with the public and with legal issues. So make sure that you're keeping very clear, especially in those areas of life. Now, it's not that these are bad energies, it's just that when the planets turn retrograde, it usually represents we need to make some sort of a review of where we are, how we got there, and then as we figure all that out, later on, when those energies move forward, where do we want to go from here? So now we move into the third quarter, and that's July, August, and September. And the card for that is a really good one. It's the Lovers. Yahoo! So this can represent, desires, a good relationship, creativity, some mutually satisfying sexual experiences. When the lovers come together, they cooperate. So you can have opportunities during this time period to make some very nice connections. And you can see this is Mars, and the powder blue is Venus, and you can see they're moving through the same area at the same time. So as we move into July, the first thing that we see is a very powerful Mars Uranus Square. Now Uranus again is up here in the ninth house, and Mars is going to be transiting down here. So we have Uranus in Taurus, which is a fixed sign, and we have Mars in Leo, which is a fixed sign, and they are antagonistic to one another. So you're going to have to control your desire nature, Mars, and again, you're going to have to be very understanding of different people with different beliefs than you, people that live in different ways. Otherwise, you might get into some sort of conflict with them. And conflicts are never very good. This is really an aspect of willfulness. So control your will and control your ego, and don't push people too hard, and don't let them push you. Then as we move ahead, both Jupiter and Saturn go retrograde. So Jupiter is going to be going back, and Saturn is going to be going back. And again, retrogrades are a time of reviewing where we have been, where we have gotten to, and then setting up where we want to go later. But Jupiter and Saturn also have a tendency to deal with business and financial issues. And since this is moving down into the sixth house and Saturn is in the sixth house, this may have ramifications in your daily habit patterns and in your work patterns. So make sure you're being very efficient both at work and in your daily patterns, because this house also affects your health, and you don't want your health to be affected in a negative manner. Next we have Venus and Mars, the lovers. You see the card, the lovers? We have Venus and we have Mars, and actually Mercury's moving with them too, but Venus and Mars are really what we want to talk about here, because they are together in the sign of Leo. So that's really a very nice, expressive sign. Both Venus and Mars like being in that sign. So this lights up your creativity. It lights up romance, some sensuality. Woohoo! But you have to be a little bit aware of what you get into, because both Venus and Mars are going to be in a square to Uranus. So again, we have this idea of understanding different people, what they believe and how they live their life, and being accepting or maybe not accepting of them, because you don't have to accept everything. So Uranus always means there's some sort of strange energy hanging around. Now when we move into August, we have Venus and Mars, but they are moving into the sign of Virgo. So that is your sign, your ascendant. That's where you express yourself. The problem with both Venus and Mars in Virgo is that they don't really like being there. Venus is very gentle and caring and loving. and Mars is very aggressive, so the Venus and Mars goes together well. But when they're in Virgo, we have to be worried about being too critical, because Virgo is one of their talents is being critical. So critical doesn't always have to mean negative. If you can keep criticism on the positive side, like, oh, I like what you did with your hair, rather than saying, boy, your hair looks like a mess. It can work out pretty good. So don't be too critical, especially in August there when Venus and Mars are in Virgo. Now, on the 19th, biggie, Uranus is going to turn retrograde. Now, again, Uranus is in this house of where we're trying to understand other people. We're trying to understand our own beliefs and how we have gotten them from the world. And we have a tendency with Uranus, well, especially in Taurus, to be a little bit stubborn and fixed. So we have to try to remain flexible in what we believe and what we think about other people. Because, just because we think something, it doesn't mean it's the truth. Truth is somewhat relative. So next we have Uranus, again up here, going retrograde in Taurus and in the 9th house. So again, this flexibility issue becomes important. Uranus says you want to have new ideas, you want to move forward to the future, but Taurus is sort of wanting to be very stable. Now, the other thing that comes into effect here is banking, finances, land, property, things of that nature, because that is what Taurus rules. Taurus is stable, anything practical. So there may have to be some changes in those areas. So watch what's happening in the stock market, because Taurus rules the stock market. Watch your investments, watch your property, things of that nature. So if you take care of them, then you don't have to worry so much. When we move into September, really something big, a big energy change occurs, because Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, Pluto's this little guy down here, all of them go retrograde. So this is really a time to be reflective and to see where we have come from and where we think we're going. Now it becomes very important because on the 27th, Mercury will go retrograde right down here. So we have to be careful. Now this is in the house of personal finances and personal talents. So you need to be very careful with money for sure. And communications, you may have to revise some of your financial planning, or some of your thoughts about where you're going or how to improve your talents so that you can make more money. But don't be spending more money if you don't have to. Now we move to the 4th quarter, and the card for the 4th quarter is the King of Swords. Now, after living through 2020 and now 2021, boy, this guy up here, look at him. He's pretty stable. He's learnt a lot. He's sitting on a solid throne. He's illuminated, and he has a sword of power. He ain't going anywhere too quick because he has logic. So you have faced many, many challenges in the past year and 2 years actually, and now you can rely on your logic and on your sense of balance to look at the world and see where it is going and how you are fitting into it. So the first thing that happens in October, and it's really a good thing, is we're going to have Pluto. We are going to have Saturn. We're going to have Jupiter, and we're going to have Mercury all moving ahead. Now this in general should just help communications, it should help business, and it should help us with personal changes. Now it's really important to be aware that in October 18th, both Jupiter and Mercury go ahead. So that should really help communications and your planning and your need for expansion or your opportunities for expansion. When we go into November, there is a magical number in mysticism. It's 1111, and even in the tarot deck, the Four of Wands is looked at as 1111. And this is a mystical number, and usually it's thought to be very good, very auspicious. However, on November 11th, Saturn, right here, is going to be squared by Mars. Now, Mars and Saturn do not like each other, just the way it is. So there can be power struggles, and there can be a tendency for frustration. So don't push beyond sensible limits. Okay, that's what's going to be important. Don't push beyond sensible limits. Watch what you say and how you say it, because it can have an effect in your job and your ability to produce. So again, watch the details. Then in December, Neptune, that's this fellow right here, will be going direct. And he is in the 7th house of partnerships and coming before the public. So that should help in that area, because again, Neptune is empowered in the sign of Pisces. That's his own sign. And when he goes direct, there'll be a very positive sextile to Venus, and that's on the 2nd of December. So that can be a very romantic and very creative time. As we move ahead, Venus, this powder blue line, will conjunct Pluto and then turn retrograde. So this is a time to be very, very careful with your money in any type of romantic or sensual situation, anything dealing with your creative expression and with children. So you have to be careful. Don't be silly. Now, when Pluto and Venus get together, sometimes you need to get rid of something that isn't working very well, that isn't giving you the depth of what you are looking for. So it can mean that there are some problems in romance that need to be straightened out. So be careful on romance, be careful with your sensuality, and you must know what you value, especially in the areas of romance and creativity. The final aspect that we want to talk about, and this is a biggie, Jupiter will go into Pisces on the 30th. Now, that is the day before New Year's. So that will have some effect on New Year's Eve, and New Year's is a party time. Jupiter likes to expand, so be careful not to overindulge too much, especially around the holidays, because you may come into the public eye in a not good way. So this is actually a very good thing on the spiritual level, on the creative level. So if you keep control of the negative side, the emotional side, the feeling side, so you don't get too emotional, don't overindulge too much, then this can be a very auspicious beginning to the new year. And it may bring you many blessings through partners. Hi, I'm Reverend Tom Kearns, and this is my story. If you are a spiritual seeker, it may help you on your journey. I believe your spiritual development is as important as your religion. If you look at Christianity, it focuses on the life of Jesus. But Jesus was never a Christian. He was Jewish. If this thought intrigues you, you'll enjoy my new book, Light from Water, Freeing Jesus. It's available on Amazon.com and through fine bookstores. And it may help you on your spiritual journey. I'd like to thank you for watching. I'd like to thank you for listening. Please subscribe, because these videos are free, and press the little bell for notifications. And if you need a psychic reading for the new year, please go to my website, internetpsychicreadings.com. And I hope you have a fabulous 2021.